Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Michelle Brightly and I'm Secretary for Rising FMs. I'm supported here by Conrad Dinsmore, who is the Deputy Chair for Risings. And today we're interviewing Andrew Hulbert and Jack Flanagan from Pareto FM. And before I hand you over to Conrad to make the introductions, I would just like to tell you a little bit about Rising FMs and what our purpose is. So basically, we're a number of individuals that have come from the FM industry, very passionate about what we do and how we do it. And our purpose is really to provide support and guidance to those entering into FM, but also, most importantly, those looking to develop their career from there onwards. Providing individuals with events to attend, knowledge and exposure to the FM industry, but also really giving them a network to rely on. So welcome to the webinar again, and I will pass you over to Conrad.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So as Michelle mentioned, we've got Jack Flanagan and Andrew Hulbert here today, both a rising star and Andrew being a pioneer in our industry for rising talent coming through, supporting them. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Jack, who's our new rising FM for the industry this year. Over to you, Jack, for an introduction.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on the webinar. So I'm Jack Flanagan. I'm the Compliance and Help Desk Manager on the ZSL account for Pareto FM. I've been in FM now coming up 4 years, and yeah, looking forward to speaking to you.
Thanks, Jack. And Andrew.
Hi everyone, Andrew Hulbert, Managing Director of Pareto FM. I'm also non-exec of the IWFM on the board. Been in the facilities sector for coming up 14 years now and being a volunteer with the IWFM for the majority of that time. Really excited to talk alongside Jack today and hopefully have some good conversations about how we attract more talent to the sector. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And just before we begin about yourselves, I'm going to ask one question to you, Andrew, first. Where did the name Pareto FM come from?
That's a good question, Conrad. It came from a philosopher called Vilfredo Pareto. He was around in the early 1900s, and he came up with the Pareto law, which was the 80-20 law. And he found through his research that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. And he came up with a law of vital few and trivial many. And actually, it was about focusing on that 20% to actually have the biggest impact. So we really like the name, and Pareto was just a nice word to say aesthetically as well, although no one can spell it, and we often get called Parento FM. So maybe it wasn't the right name 6 years ago, but who knows? But yeah, so Vilfredo Pareto is where it came from.
Brilliant, thank you. So the first question then, it's open to both of you, but we just really want to start off by you talking about your career so far and what brought both of you into the FM industry. Jack, if I could start with you, please.
Yeah, no problem. So my career, I mean, I've been in it 4 years now, and I feel like I could talk for an eternity about my career so far in FM. It all started at my current workplace, Whipsnade Zoo, and I met Alexandra Mills, who's our account director at Pareto. I was actually opening up a coffee shop, my first job when I was a little bit younger. And she walked into the coffee shop, and we were having a bit of a chinwag. She ordered her coffee, and I was just making her a coffee, and we were just having a chat. And I suppose she must have spotted a little spark and said, look, we've got a role for you ready to go at London Zoo as a help desk administrator. And to be totally honest, I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what FM was, and I had no idea, the impact we have on people. And I just sort of leapt at it, got straight stuck in at London Zoo with, job tickets coming in left, right and centre, and really taking that step into the industry from the bottom. And then sort of, growing and working my way up. But I think that's the best way to do it. And I've learned so much throughout my career, progressing onwards into a facilities coordinator role on the same contract, just taking on a lot more and slowly starting to grow myself within that estates department, looking after subbies and taking on more subject matter until finally I've ended up in this role now, as compliance and help desk manager, which is quite vast, and there's a lot to undertake and a lot to look after. But you always resort back to where you started and learning from the ground and bringing it all forward till now, and ultimately ending up with the Newcomer of the Year award, which I'm incredibly proud of. And yeah, something I've taken with me throughout my career. So quite a journey, starting off quite trivially over a mocker, I think, if I remember rightly.
Achieved a lot in what is a short space of time, by the sounds of it. Good. And Andrew, what about yourself then?
My journey started. I'd gone to university and I was looking for an interim job between like the summer between the university months, between second and third year. I came across a small business called Rollright Facilities. Again, I didn't know what facilities was at that stage, but I took the internship and had a great time working with those guys. Went back to uni, finished my degree, joined them again full time. As a very proactive choice to come into the FM sector because I could see the world of opportunity that it created. Did 4 years at Rollright. I was associate director when I was about 24, 25 years old. Then we got sold to Bilfinger, and I did a couple of years in Bilfinger as a director of that organization. And then in 2014, I left Bilfinger and set up Pareto. So Pareto, facility services based organization, literally started from my bedroom with a laptop and an idea about how we could run a different type of services business. And fast forward to today, Pareto's 20 million turnover, one of the fastest growing companies within the UK, even outside of the facilities management sector. And we work with some of the most inspiring and interesting workspaces and most productive workspaces within the world. And actually, it's a really exciting journey. Along that time, I volunteered for IWFM my entire way through my career. It's been a brilliant part of my journey and fantastic for networking and supporting other people. I did my MSc at UCL, so I'm accredited to level 7, which is how I'm a fellow within the IWFM as well. And actually, the bit I've enjoyed most about it is meeting people like Jack, and bringing people like Jack. We don't find all of our staff over a coffee in the gift shop, but certainly it's a good way for those recruiters out there looking for where to find new talent. But actually, stories like Jack and within Pareto are just there are so many stories like him that we've had, and actually that's been the exciting part of this journey, giving opportunities to new people so they can grow and develop. And actually, one of the first things Jack worked on was when the Queen and Prince Philip, Queen and Prince Philip came to Whipsnade Zoo. And actually, he was part of that team that made sure that was all a really successful journey, and that was a great way to sort of get him involved in all the bits that FM is. So there you go.
Oh, thank you. And every time I hear your story and the journey of Pareto FM, it seems to be more and more inspiring. And I think for those who follow Pareto FM on Twitter and LinkedIn, they can actually see your journey go through and how you are growing and the sheer speed you are doing that, but with all the right principles behind you as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note one thing that Pareto always aimed to do right from the start was to really focus on social value. So yes, it's great that we're a fast growing business, we make a good amount of profit and we're a successful organization, but actually it's the good stuff that we do for the industry. We're leading now around LGBT+, around Black Lives Matter, around general diversity, mental health, autism, mental health awareness. All these things for us is just part of our DNA. And actually, that's really what we've enjoyed about this journey. And actually, part of what Jack did last year, Jack, we do a skydive annually with Pareto, and he was part of raising money for CALM, so the campaign against living miserably, focusing on men's mental health. And we raised nearly £10,000 for our jump when we did that last year. So it's amazing to do the day job and to see all those things progress, but actually it's all of the social value based things we do outside of that which get us really excited for the progression of FM.
How did you find your jump?
I'll let Jack answer that one.
I first had to get to weight, which was 18 stone, which is quite challenging being a tight head rugby player. So that was the first challenge, and then it was jumping out of an aeroplane at 15,000 feet. So yeah, it was quite a challenge. And if we thought that wasn't scary enough, this year we've decided to take on the 3 Peaks challenge, just to go one step further. So yeah, it's all going to be fantastic, and it's all, as Andrew says, it's around building a culture for our people, all with the same values, which is it's all part of FM, isn't it?
So that leads us on to our next question. In terms of finding a mentor to support you, during your journey, do you think that you've had a mentor within Pareto FM?
100%, yeah.
How has that helped you?
It's helped me massively. I mean, as I mentioned, I came into the sector not knowing what it was, not knowing really, the entire setup and how vast it is as an industry. But yeah, I've been very lucky to have Alex Mills, again, who's our account director, to sort of, help me through from that ground stage, and also Andrew to just set me up with opportunities, training opportunities, different roles and responsibilities. But I also think it's been the trust that's been placed in me that's developed my role further. There's nothing better than having some responsibility put on you, because you can develop your skills and push your ideas on things. So for me, having a mentor has massively helped me grow into where I am today, and I can see it for the future. It's only going to be benefit to have someone like Andrew and Alex and all the fantastic people we've got pushing us all forward. So yeah, it's been really beneficial for me.
And for you, Andrew, in terms of your background and your entry point into FM, along your journey, what do you feel that you've found that's been really key to you becoming an entrepreneur and basically starting your own business at such a young age? And what's been key to that process?
I think when I was studying business at university, so I always wanted to go into some sort of entrepreneurial based role. I didn't know how I was going to get there when I was 20 years old, but it was always sort of that thought process. And actually for me, when I joined Rollright, on that 8-week internship in the summer, it just really gave me a taster about what facilities management could be like. But also it showed me all of the bad points about FM and where all the opportunities were as well. And what I'd seen at that stage, which is a good 10 years ago now, was that a lot of the big boys had a big chunk of the market. Their service delivery wasn't necessarily exceptionally good, didn't really treat their staff fantastically well. Processes were very slow, and actually it was I could already see that sort of frustration in terms of how that sector was operating within itself. So for me, what gave me the hunger for facilities management was seeing it for an 8-week period. And what I did in my internship was I did a competitor analysis on the sector for Rollright. So I went to 20 other competitors and just analysed them. So from their accounts to their credit scores to the client bases to the services that they delivered, and really just got an idea about what FM was about. And actually, when I came back to Rollright after I'd finished uni, for me, I knew that probably two things would happen. I'd either end up being the MD of Rollright one day, because that's where my path was taking me and I was excited by that, or that I'd learn some skills and I'd be able to go and start my own business. I've wanted to start my own business since I was about the age of 12. I knew that's what I wanted to do. But like I said, I was always one of those guys that had a load of hunger, but no ideas. And FM sort of just, after I had a bit of exposure to it, it just naturally highlighted to me where the opportunities might be. But that's easier said than done. Anyone can go and start a business tomorrow. That's easy to do. But actually making it a success is the challenging part. And still 80% of new businesses fail every year. This is not something that's straightforward to do. And actually, going back to Pareto law, it's about those 20% of businesses that can get past year one and keep the cash flow and things going. So yeah, so luckily for me, the internship and just that taster of what FM was about was enough to get me excited about it. And then ultimately, my entrepreneurial career then took off from that side of things.
Great stuff. No, that's really interesting. Over to you, Conrad.
Definitely insightful. So with that, what advice would you give to other young professionals who are looking to enter the FM industry then? Jack, I'll go to you first.
I think linking back to what we were just talking about having a mentor, I think if you're watching this and you're looking to be a part of it, is definitely get a mentor. It's great to benchmark yourself and your goals against someone who's already been there and had that experience. I think that is so important. I think I say be versatile. Coming into the industry not knowing what it was is, don't sit within the confinements of your job role. There's so much to explore. There's so much to learn. There's so much to be a part of. So to just be proactive with it and go out and get stuck in. We can all stay chained to our desk, but at the end of the day, FM is such a vast industry and there's a lot of subject matter to cover. I'd say ask tons of questions to the point where you become annoying. No question is too silly. There's different processes and procedures everywhere, but just to be clear on your subject matter and just be a sponge for that knowledge. Look to the peers around you, look to the people in your offices. They're the experts, they've been there and done it. Just take up that experience and find out how people do things and why they do things, and get that fundamental knowledge behind you, and just put a lot into it, because the more you put into FM, the more you get out of it. It's one of those industries.
Yeah, definitely. And your point about being a sponge, I completely agree with. The industry is that diverse when you are surrounded by so many subject matter experts. To be able to just soak in that knowledge really helps to start the career. What would your advice be, Andrew?
I think for young people coming in, you know, like I said, when I joined, I was about 21. I'd come out of uni. Not many people had come through the university route into the sector as we know about. And actually, you have to have an air of self-assurance without being overconfident in those scenarios. Because I remember the first job I had within Rollright, I had about 50 people I was given to manage straight away. I'd never managed people before in my whole life. And it was only through hard work and actually getting to know everybody and actually completely removing any ego and just working hard to get to know them well as individuals is what served me well, because I had no technical skill set, I had no experience in management, so all I could do was really get to know people on a normal level. And actually what always worked well for me, and it still does now, is things like donuts. You know, we spend an awful lot of money on donuts in Pareto, as you'll see from our social media, not so much in lockdown, unfortunately. But actually, for me, it was about communicating with people at a level where we were all just people sat around a table having a donut and just chatting about what was going on. I couldn't come in there and say, I'm the best, I know what I'm doing, you know, listen to me. So my advice to people who are looking to enter, if you've got a good level of confidence and competence and you're willing to work hard and you can get on with people at every single level, whether that's people on an operative level or the CEO of an organization, it's a really important skill. And if you have got that, then actually you can go really far, certainly within the service delivery aspect of facilities management, working for a service provider. The other advice I would give to any young people actually within the sector, whether they're in it or not, is, you know, we're taught within capitalism to give an awful lot of respect to the people that work above us, and we absolutely must respect them. But there's a lot of bad people that work in this sector who are not very good at their jobs. Actually, you just have to consider that actually, if you can really work hard and you can really take on a lot of responsibility and you can take it very seriously, you can start to outshine the people above you quite quickly. And actually, people, you know, Conrad, you've had a young career, you've progressed well as well, and there are many other young people within this sector. It's about being competent and showing that you can do a great job very early. And then FM is probably the best sector that there is for having that quick growth. Because if you consider us against medical sector or law sector or professional services, they have to go through a certain set of accreditations and professionalism before they actually get up to the next stage. Whereas in FM, you can have people like Jack in their mid-20s who are looking after 235 buildings across 700 acres of estate, you know, in a very early age. And actually, that's a really positive thing about facilities management.
Can I ask you, Jack, working with Andrew, have you kind of taken on board that entrepreneurial flair, would you say?
I think he could definitely answer this better than me, but 100%. You can't not. I mean, I'm sure the listeners listening to this will be able to pick up on it. He's an inspiring man with a lot to tell. And it just naturally oozes off, and you pick up on that work ethic, and it just pushes you forward. You know, he mentioned about having loads of ideas and not knowing where to focus. That was my exact, you know, week 2. I was asked to do an asset grab on site, and I was like, I don't know what that means. You've got all these different assets for how to tweak things and make it better, and you can't help but turn into a natural entrepreneur. It just oozes from him, and that's what we pick up. It's great to be a part of.
And Jack, I think in things like, you know, the skydive, you would always go out of your way to make sure everyone had T-shirts, and we had great social media, and we had things like great food on the day, and setting up WhatsApp groups and getting people together and trying to convince the director of Calm, trying to convince the director of Calm to jump with us and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think my biggest bugbear is the saying less is more. I could not disagree more. I think less is less and more is more. And it's those little tweaks and the little fine finishes that make you know, that people remember it, and that it rolls through to FM as well. You know, no matter who you're speaking to, like Andrew's just mentioned, it's the little things that stick with people.
Yeah,
and it's going.
And Andrew,
yeah,
I'm going to just put a spin on this question for your point of view. What advice would you give to managers or senior managers who maybe are about to manage someone new into the industry for the first time and aren't sure how to process that?
That's a really good question, Conrad. I rarely think of it from that scenario, so it's good actually. Give them time, definitely give them time, and give them FaceTime, which may be through WhatsApp these days. They may not want to talk to you face to face that often. It may be that they want to have extended conversations with you on WhatsApp. And actually, if you I think we call them Generation Zs now. I don't know if there's a one behind Z just yet, but they'll be coming through soon. But actually, they don't really want to speak to you face to face. They don't really want to speak to you on the phone a lot of the time. They do want to communicate electronically. They do want to be given responsibility and made to feel like they have responsibility. And you do have to make sure you manage them in a certain way. If you give them a load of responsibility and they fail, it's not okay to go and completely tear them apart because they failed. It has to be part of the learning process. And it is about sitting down and saying, right, this hasn't worked out. What do we need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Make sure they learn from their mistakes. Because if you've got someone in their early 20s and they're really eager and really keen, the worst thing you can do is kill that enthusiasm. And actually, you just need to give them space and time to grow with it. And actually, some of the best people that I've seen in the sector, and certainly within Pareto, are the ones where we give them free rein and just occasionally have to herd them back in a little bit to make sure that they're operating within inside the lines. But that's a very entrepreneurial way to think about things as well. And that's ultimately how we operate. The way I see Pareto is about 50 little businesses that work within Pareto that all operate in a slightly different way. And that's how the model is successful, because then you can do things for clients in a way that perhaps couldn't be done, in a wider context. But yeah, time, focus, lots of WhatsApp, and maybe some donuts as well.
So in terms of your time during FM, and I'll start with you, Jack, if that's okay, I mean, obviously coming out of a pandemic would have made a significant difference, but how has FM changed during your time within the industry?
So I'll come back to the pandemic, because that is a completely unaccounted for thing. But I'm starting to see, thank God, a much more focused audience on the tougher subjects that usually get a backseat, like women in engineering, LGBTQ+. Those are the morals and the beliefs that we live by in Pareto, and they're now starting to come to the forefront of the industry. We're seeing, a lot of big service providers putting on their LinkedIn and through their social channels, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's how we get the conversation started. And I've also seen a huge focus on compliance, sustainability, and the environment. FM is an industry that moves with the world around it, and the world is, always focusing on sustainability. What can we do to improve the environment? Greenhouse gases emitting and things like that, and just people operating in ways to, complement those different worlds. But in times of the pandemic, we've seen pop-up hospitals go up overnight. We've seen, FMs looking after big multi-story buildings through, an unconfirmed period of time, getting them ready for when people are going to return. That, FM is the forefront of what's happened through COVID, and it's massive compliments to the industry and the people that work within it.
I just echo that as well, actually. Some of the larger providers within this sector have been absolutely fantastic through the COVID-19 scenarios. I've been very fortunate to be part of the judging panel for the COVID-19 under the IWFM awards that I did previously. And actually, some of the stories are amazing. And a lot of the providers had to admit that actually a lot of process had to go out the window to be able to set things up within 7 days, because that's what the government was pushing them to do. And we've seen some just phenomenal things. And that's why IWFM had a whole category dedicated to COVID-19 last year in the awards, because it was just so phenomenal in terms of how that had been dealt with. And I was really proud of the sector in terms of how it had actually dealt with that sort of situation.
So in terms of, we've spoken a lot about the milestones in your career, and Jack, this is really for you, but what do you feel have been the key milestones during your career so far?
I sort of think about this on a few different levels, because obviously I've got the contract that I'm on, and then I've got Pareto and my career itself. So, progressing through my roles on my current contract are huge milestones for me. I'd never had a promotion ever prior to working in my current role, and as I've progressed up, each one has, a little nod to say, this hard work has been really well rewarded, and it's great to have been part of that learning process. But for me, things like gaining my level 4 through IWFM, I used to hate school. I used to hate the whole learning progress. I just didn't get on with it very well. And that whole course run through IWFM, for me to get my level 4, it was just such a big eye opener for me. And I just felt very proud to gain that from someone who'd never got on very well at school. So that was a big milestone for me. But yeah, the biggest one for me has to be the Newcomer of the Year award. I remember turning back the clock 2 years now, I think. And we went to the IWFM networking event at London Zoo, which Conrad and Plum were speaking at, and I was in the audience. And I remember distinctly, clear as day, turning to Andrew and Daisy, my manager at the time, and I said, look, I genuinely think I can win this. I'm going to go for it next year. And it all turned out really positive, and it was a fantastic journey. But that is a massive milestone for my career. From not knowing anything about FM and from not knowing what I wanted to do with my career after my rugby journey failed, to me that is something I look back on, and you know, I've even got it hanging in my flat. I'm that sad, but I've got it hanging up on the wall to say, look, I'm so proud of this. But yeah, they're my big career milestones.
It's so interesting that you say that, you know, from an academic point of view, you wasn't necessarily somebody that had that focus on you know, education. You know, what would you give anybody that's currently in education and not really enjoying their time there, but still wanting to be successful in life?
Don't panic. Don't panic. If you work hard and you've got the right, you know, attitude and the right, you know, curriculum to go for it, it will all work out. I remember I've been in that position. I really did not get on well. I didn't do overly well in my exams. I got what I needed, and I turned towards the end of it because I put all my eggs in one basket, to say the better word, and it never worked out. But I remember sitting there panicking, thinking, what on earth am I going to do? I've got nothing. But there's a career for everyone, and FM is that sector that, you know, it's so diverse. There's so many different opportunities there for people that you know, there's always something out there for everyone. Is basically what I'm trying to say there.
Jack, you were one of the first that went on the IWFM level 4 in a week, weren't you, as well? That was a way that you found learning was working for you?
Yeah, 100%. I remember looking at the course overview and reaching out to Andrew to ask if I could go on it and say, look, that focused study within that week, because it was very full on, it was very, you know, information based, it was quite practical, but that is how I learn. I don't learn over a 6-month period. I need all the information up front, and then I can just handle it and, you know, process it in my own way. And like I mentioned, that is a big career milestone for me, because I never thought I'd go back into that learning environment, but I did. And, you know, through the IWFM call in a week, it's just complemented how I learn and works really well for me.
And do you offer apprenticeships in the Pareto FM business?
Yeah. So we're part of the 5% club. So around 5% of our business is apprenticeships. We offer apprenticeships in all new tenders that we do, whether clients ask for it or not through a tender process. And we specifically are focusing at the moment on our women in engineering apprenticeships. So really actively trying to bring more women into the engineering sector. We were successful on a contract recently, massive magazine house that's about 85% women in their environment. So we said, look, this has got to be the perfect environment to bring a young woman up into from an apprenticeship perspective. We were successful on the contract. We went out and we hired a young woman called Honey. She's on our social media if you want to look her up. And actually, Honey is one of the best apprentices that we've got now after being with us coming up nearly a year. And actually, you know, she has to work harder than the boys. She has to put point to prove, and, you know, all the challenges that come with that. But she's been exceptionally good. Now, Pareto's brave enough to go to the market to say that we want to bring a woman into this apprenticeship role. We get heat for that online. People are quite negative about us. You know, there's a lot of men who are unhappy with that sexism, and we understand that challenge. But for us, it's about trying to change the future of the sector and trying to make sure that we, you know, we bring diversity into it. Something we work really hard on, and actually, apprenticeships is a great way to do that. And also, look, if you think about the commercial benefits of an apprentice may cost you 15k a year. Let's say an electrical engineer may cost you 45k a year. So now you can have 3 apprentices for 1 electrician. Now that's pretty good in terms of, if you think of even basic things like tap temperatures, emergency lights, you know, general fire door checks, whatever. The apprentices can do these roles, and it can be a really effective way to get more labor involved. And actually, we have some apprentices in this business that if someone off the street met them, they wouldn't know they're apprentices anymore, because they have so much confidence, and they've grown, and they're so important within the team. And Pareto being an SME, we also we use our 100% of our apprenticeship levy every year, which means then that we can continue to take on apprentices at 5% of their training fee. So actually, it becomes a really financially great thing for Pareto to do, and something we can offer again that some of the large providers can't. So it's yeah, apprentices is big for us, and it's an area that we will continue to focus on and continue to invest in as well from our side.
That's amazing. Yeah, very good. And,
so,
and
Andrew,
sorry, Conrad.
I was just going to ask the same question to Andrew that we started with Jack, of just in your time, how have you seen the FM industry change?
It's a good question. A lot of it's fundamentally the same. I think there is definitely a push towards workplace experience within service delivery. That's a major change from what I saw when I first entered the sector. I've always believed that facilities management is a strategically important thing for an organization, because we directly impact the productivity of staff on a daily basis for these organizations. And like I said, Pareto's fortunate enough to work with some really productive, high energy, high delivery model workspaces. And actually it's something that we're particularly interested in. So certainly starting to see a link between facilities management and productivity. I'd echo what Jack would say around social value. Certainly, if you look at government procurement, when we got onto the Crown Commercial Services Framework, 25% of the scoring was based on our social value, which was a really big thing, I thought, from the government's perspective, which I was really pleased to see. And we see a lot of clients that we partner with, but it's mainly based on our cultural fit and our rather than how much does it cost, what SFG 20 specification are we using, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Clients know they can go to the market and find 30 different subcontractors that are probably going to do a similar job, but it's actually about trying to find those that are going to really gel with organizations and create that partnership, which everyone talks about partnership, but you know, it's about really meaning it and delivering something like demonstrable through that process. So yeah, a lot of the original frustrations I had within FM, they're still there, and but like we say, we're trying to change the sector one contract relationship at a time, and actually I think that's what we're always trying to continue to do. So thanks.
Thank you.
And you know, in terms of, you know, future aspirations, you know, what are your plans for the future? Where do you go from here?
Right, an exciting one for me.
Go to you, Jack. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as I've mentioned, I hope I've touched on it. I've learned a hell of a lot, you know, be through training or through experience on my current contract. Andrew will definitely go into the management buyout of Pareto more, but I'm just really excited to get, you know, I feel like I've learned so much here, and I'm ready to push on into the wider Pareto infrastructure. You know, the management buyout is going to create a lot of opportunities for growth in-house at Pareto, and I want to get stuck in and see what else we've got to do. You know, I've been part of the journey since day one. I think I was employee number 83. You know, I just want to push on, and I want to be a part of it and push myself elsewhere and just see what else there is to learn. It's, as I've mentioned about 12 times before, it's such a vast industry, and I feel like every day is a new day to learn and bring more in. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what comes off the back of the management buyout for Pareto, and it's all really positive.
Great to hear. And Andrew, you've accomplished so many groundbreaking things and achieved a number of firsts within your career and within the industry. What's left for you? What's next?
The management buyout is probably a good place to come to from what Jack was just saying. So, you know, Pareto's been going for 6 years, and we've just had an injection of £18 million into our organisation to enable us to grow and actually be one of the most successful and fastest growing companies within the sector. And ultimately, I've grown a business from nothing to 20 million in my bedroom, you know, in about 6 years or so. Now I'm really excited to have a lot of capital to invest in people, process, systems, and see what sort of organization we can create off the back of that. One thing Pareto has been very good at is continuing to build that cultural piece and maintain its culture as it's grown. And actually, we're looking at bringing some really interesting roles into Pareto now, like global head of diversity and inclusion and that sort of thing, to actually really start to focus in on what made Pareto brilliant in the first place and how we can extrapolate that and grow that to the next stage. So I'm looking forward to using that investment, looking forward to improving systems and processes and ultimately creating opportunities. Going back to what I said at the start, one of the things that I'm most proud of is, you know, there's nearly 200 people that work within Pareto now, and probably around 50 of those are overhead type roles. So if Pareto wasn't here, we wouldn't have created those 50 jobs for people, which makes me feel really good from that scenario, because that means that we've given 50 opportunities. And it's not just the people that work for us, it's all their families that benefit from the incomes and the job opportunities that they have as well. And I think as I grew Pareto, it was something that really starts to play on your mind, that you're not messing about anymore as you get to 20 million. You know, there's a lot of people's livelihoods that depend on your daily decisions. And I've enjoyed that pressure and enjoyed doing that well. And you know, I still get involved in the odd mobilization and things, and really enjoy actually still liaising with the team members. So from my side of things, it's about my entrepreneurial growth. It's how we go from where we are today to how we get to a much bigger number, you know, over the next number of years as we use our investment wisely, but also the opportunities that we create for other people. So the industry may not love me saying this, but I'm as excited as ever about growing and winning and you know, and being successful within Pareto. And all those people, you know, Jack talks about being employee number 83 or whatever, but you know, we still got employee number 2 who works with us and employee number 4, and actually those guys have been on a hell of a journey with us, and actually it's about rewarding those people that left big FM service providers to come and join us at a time when Pareto was still in a really extreme growth curve and was a risk for them to do so. And actually part of the MBO for me was to just reward those people and to say thank you and to continue to grow this legacy as the organization changes and adapts and grows. And so there's still plenty to go for me. But also, I think on the social value side, coming back to that, I want to do something with a real legacy. I want to create something. And I don't know exactly what that is just yet, but something, maybe some sort of foundation or buying some sort of land and doing something really special with it. And actually just creating something that will far outlive me personally, and actually just creating a foundation to really live that value about what Pareto was here for and what it was there to do, and hopefully, you know, continues to grow it. And as we get bigger, we have our own inclusion committee now. There's a whole committee of people that are working on this type of thing within Pareto, and actually that's really exciting for us, because that just means now there are more people, more ideas, a really diverse group of people as well on that board. And actually, what ideas can we come up with, and how can we change the world? This is bigger than FM for us. This is changing the world and doing some things that will be memorable. So yeah, plenty still to go at, and I'm only 34 still, so I've still got a little bit of energy. Just
got a bit of time, yeah.
Yeah, and a bit of time. That's exactly right. Exactly that.
Well, I can imagine our audience listening to this are sitting saying, like I am, okay, what can I go do now? After listening to that, it definitely is inspiring.
Did you have, I mean, I was going to ask you about, you know, what are your plans for World FM Day, but before I ask that, or you elaborate on that, you know, do you have plans to hit the international market, do you think, Andrew?
Yes, so we're fortunate enough to, we've grown into Ireland and into Malta with a client. We're also now going into some other countries as well with those organizations. So yeah, Europe is certainly an area that we're looking at from our side for sure.
So, Jack, what are your plans for World FM Day? Have you got any arrangements or?
You know what, I don't have anything completely outstanding, but I you know, I was thinking about this beforehand. I think it's a great time to reflect about the industry, especially through COVID and what's happened. And we were talking about how we've seen it change, but I think it's a great day for reflection about what FM provides for people. You know, we are people giving services to other people, but I think it's a good time to look back and think, you know, we're actually really proud to work in this sector and what it does for everyone.
And also just before we move on, in terms of, you know, that final bit of advice, you know, for those that are looking to develop their careers into FM and our followers ultimately that are at entry level, you know, what advice would you give?
Grab it, both hands, and go full throttle, and don't apologize for being, you know, over passionate. Just push yourself into it. I've said before, you'll get out of FM everything you put in, and your employers will recognize you for that. They really, really will. And you know, grab it with both hands and go full throttle at it. Hopefully, I've evidenced what can be achieved from, you know, a background that's not educational and not FM focused. You know, I'd like to put myself out there to chat to any young people watching, to say, like, look, this is what can be done. But yeah, just go full throttle with it, and be very passionate and care. Push your values and stand by your values, and don't apologize. I'm unapologetically me, sorry. So, you know, I'm never going to apologize for that, and how passionate I am about the industry.
Great stuff.
And Andrew, what advice would you give to those then who are looking to take that entrepreneurial approach and to start their own business?
It's a good question. I don't know whether I'd suggest it or not. I'd say have a long think about it first. Two or three things. You really have got to want it. You really need to believe that it's the right thing to do, because when you start your own business, unless you're going in with like 5 or 6 other people, a lot of it is about you. It's your own internal monologue. You're only talking to yourself, and you need to have a lot of belief in your soul and in your heart that this is the right thing to do, because no one is setting an alarm for you in the morning, says you need to be here by 8 o'clock or whatever. You have to do all of that entirely yourself. So you need to look inside and think, are you willing to properly go hell for leather and just give it everything you've got? Because if you do, you've got a great chance of it being a success. You know, I make no secret about it. When I first started Pareto, I was getting up at 5. I was getting home at 10 p.m. Getting up at 5 a.m. Getting home at 10 p.m. I'd be working all of Sunday, and I just did that for a couple of years just to make sure things got off the ground. Now that's hard work, and you have to make a lot of sacrifices to do that. And a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you that's a stupid thing, and you should have hired more people sooner, and blah blah blah. But everybody has to do it in their own way. So really, have you got it in you to work hard, and have you got an internal belief system that is just going to get you up every day and get on with it? The next one is resilience. You know, you need to accept failure, and you need to accept people turning you down. Even today, you know, we get told that we're too small by some clients, and you know, that's the same thing as we've been told 6 years ago when we had nothing. You have to have resilience. You have to believe that something else is going to happen, and you have to be very realistic with yourself around the reasons. And something we've always really focused on is we don't just tender anything. We tender opportunities we think we have the chance of winning. And actually, that's really important to focus so you don't waste your time on what you're actually doing. It's very tempting to go off course and do other things because people are offering you opportunities in certain areas. But you need to stay true to what you're good at and what's going to make you money and what's going to make you successful. And actually really focusing on that. And the final thing I'd say is, what's your worst case scenario? And this is really important as well. What happens if it all goes wrong? You lose all your money, you lose all your relationships. What happens to you then? So for me, I was very lucky. You know, it's well documented, my working class background. I could have gone back and lived in my mum and dad's house in the bedroom I grew up in if everything went wrong for me, and I could have started again. I had a genuine belief at 26 that if I went and tried to run a business for 18 months and it wasn't successful and everything failed and I lost my marriage and I lost my income and I lost the whole business, I could go back, sit in my bedroom again and start all over again. And I was comfortable with that being my backstop, because I knew that I'd be able to be, build myself up again. And in this sector, if you've had a senior role within some of the bigger organizations, you can easily go and work for another one. It's not difficult to get roles within within big organizations within FM if you've got experience within them. And so that was always my backup. Now, luckily, I never had to use it, and you know, things have gone well for me from that side of things. But I was willing to put it all on the line and take that risk. And I think someone I've always looked up to is Simon Cowell. I love the X Factor, again, well documented. That's something I love. I've seen it recorded live many times. And actually, Simon Cowell, he lost it all, and he started again, and he became even more successful the second time round. So you've got to be willing to put everything on the line and lose it. And that includes relationships and friendships. On Friday nights when I was 27, I wasn't going out and getting drunk. I was writing reports, getting ready for Monday and that sort of stuff. So it's just dedicating yourself to it. If you really believe you can do it and put that level of dedication, then there's no reason you shouldn't be a success on that side.
Definitely fantastic advice there. And as you've mentioned throughout the webinar, and it's been documented, you're a part of a lot of rising groups, the Rising FMs, you've been judge, mentor. How have groups like that and opportunities like that supported you in your career?
Yeah, I cannot say how important getting involved in things like Rising FMs and the IWFM and wider groups are. It's fundamental to my career in Rollright and Bilfinger and ultimately Pareto. There's 2 or 3 things that it does. It builds a support network for you, for people that you can just chat to on a real low hassle, low risk basis. You're just chatting to other people that are on the same level as you. I was really bad at networking when I first started. Back in the days when we had Blackberries, if anyone was old enough to remember Blackberries, I remember going to networking events and just standing in the corner on my Blackberry pretending like I was doing some work because I was too scared to speak to people. Now, that's not networking ultimately, but you do need to start to build your confidence up. And actually, groups like Risings, which, you know, I was lucky, I was there in the days when we had people like Sam Bowman who were leading us then, and we were winning the IWFM SIG of the Year awards quite regularly at that sort of stage. But they were just amazing people, driven people, and actually I just got a lot of inspiration from those. But also, in a very selfish way, it gets you exposure as well. So actually, you might get something in the press, you might get an article or something, or you might do a podcast or a webcam or whatever for these sort of scenarios. And actually, we've all got to think about our personal brand, and we've all got to think about our own personal growth. And actually, people like Conrad, again, I mean, Conrad, you're well covered in the press, and actually the work that you do within Risings has been integral to part of that as well. And again, when I was going through the ranks, Risings was integral. I was working on part of the Young Managers Forum as well, which I was chairman of, which was great too. And all of these things ultimately were great for networking, but also promoting promoting our personal brand, sorry, and then actually trying to link social value back to that as well. So I would encourage anybody, and I know that feeling of how awkward it is to go to a networking event and not know anybody there. My advice would be try and go with somebody else that you know. And the other piece of advice that Sajna Rahman gave me recently is if you're in a networking event and you want to chat to some people, go and talk to a group of 3, because obviously there's already 3 people there. 2 of them will be talking to each other and 1 of them will be not talking. So go and join that group of 3, because then you fit the balance. So I thought that was quite a nice idea, just as a way to go and sort of chat to people in the first instance. But yeah, I may come across as confident now and, you know, and self-assured, but I hated networking to start out with, and really something I had to work on to grow myself there.
Great, thank you. And we also hear that you're doing some work to raise awareness of further education. Could you maybe just explain some of that and the activities that you're doing and what you hope the outcome will be?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of further education in my time, or certainly trying to promote facilities management within schools and education environments. So back in the day, me and Chris Morris from Xenon used to go to school careers days, and we used to talk about facilities management to people. And we used to see the parents usher their children past our stand so that they didn't talk to the cleaners, you know, over in that stand, which was always a bit of a challenge. But yeah, for me, it's about creating connections with universities and colleges, and, you know, colleges of further education and sixth forms and things. And actually, it's about getting into those schools and giving a message. Now, we know a lot of schools, they want speakers, you know, obviously there's no charge for doing this sort of thing. It's great exposure for the people that we put forward as well, because they get to speak in front of large groups. And I love talking to children because you can just be much more real with them than you can with adults. And actually, there's a famous picture of me that I don't think is on the internet any longer, of me when I was 18, very drunk, 2 of my friends in a headlock, big beard. And actually, that's the picture I put up as I'm stood there in my suit with the kids, saying, this is what I was doing when I was 17. This is what I do now, you know. And actually, you know, life is all about change and going on certain journeys. And actually, so yeah, so for Risings and for IWFM and from Pareto, it's just about encouraging that next layer of people to be interested in the FM sector. And as Jack said, and Jack's a really good example, someone that was a little bit lost at school, didn't love school, didn't want to go on to uni and waste a load of time there, but actually had a huge amount of competency and enthusiasm and just allocated that in the right way. You know, and Jack, as he mentioned earlier, Jack had a rugby career that was pulled short due to an injury, and actually that was a different path. He had to completely go and reinvent himself, starting in a gift shop, you know, on a zoo to try and get things going again, and look at what's gone on from there. So I think that's why I love FM so much, because you can be anyone with any background and come into this sector and really go for it. You know, ex-military as well is really important within this sector, and something that just gives those opportunities. So whether it's education or not education or military, as I say, is just so much opportunity within the facilities management sector.
That's a big thing for me, that going into schools, you know. I remember saying when I was entering for the award, that's one of the things I wanted to go back and do, is go back into schools and speak to people that would have been in my position then, and just say, look, and it links back to what I was saying about not panicking. There's an opportunity in FM for everyone. You know, I hate the sound of people waving you past the career stand and stuff like that, but I'd love to go back. That's one of my own personal aspirations, to go back and speak to people and, you know, old head teachers, and say, you know, offer this career path. You know, recently when filling out the census, I went to type in my job role, and again, it's not a recognised job title. It begs belief for me, and I'd love to go back and just escalate it to the next generation coming through, especially of FMs.
Yeah, definitely. And when you hear people say it's to go back and be able to talk about the career path, I always say we've got a career path with loads of lanes and pathways coming off it, because it is so diverse, and where they may start, they're definitely not going to finish in a straight line. It's going to be everywhere from experience. But great to hear you want to go back, and I echo that it is important. I think just before closing thoughts, I have one last question, that something quite personal to me as well, is we've a lot of, as you mentioned, the CAM and mental health within the industry at the moment. We have a lot of young people, a lot of rising talent who currently are possibly working from home or sitting on furlough, who are sitting saying, I wanted to progress my career at speed, but now I'm sitting here, I'm not getting the exposure, I'm not getting what I want to do, and it is affecting their mental health. What advice would you give to those people that may be watching this?
I'll go first, that's all right. I think it links nicely back into what Andrew's saying about be resilient. As you say, I've been lucky enough to be out on site throughout the whole pandemic. I've not had the whole locked indoors thing. It must be horrible, and I can only sympathise. But just be resilient. Everyone's got to stick through it. And finding hobbies, something that's really helped me outside from working in COVID times now, and it's all very hectic, is to find a hobby that can take you away from your work day. I think it's very important to switch off in the right capacity, but to talk to them directly, that speak to your friends, find that support network, and it will really help you thrive. But just to be resilient, like you said, FM is such a bumpy path, and they may not be where they want to be now, but stick with it, and put a lot of effort in. No one can ever hide talent. You can't keep talent back. So.
Yeah, Conrad, actually, this is something I spoke about extensively at Workplace Week. And we've been very honest within Pareto. We've seen a lot of people struggle. Pareto is very much an environment where we're fast growth, fast paced. People are coming on journeys with us, learning every single day. Now, a lot of people, they've had to sit at home, either on furlough or just in a 1-bedroom flat in London, trying to balance themselves. And that's been incredibly difficult. The first thing that we say is that's okay. It's okay to feel bad about that. It's okay to feel negative, because it's affected everybody in a really hard way. And actually what we've tried to do is just keep the communications up. It's been really important. But also we offered everybody in Pareto Institute of Leadership Management Level 2 training, because what we wanted to do was everybody who was sat at home, we wanted to give them a chance to do some training in their own time if they wanted to. It wasn't mandatory. So actually what we were saying to people was make the most of the time you've got at home, get all these new skills so that when you come back, you're ready to hit the ground. But it's no secret, we've had some good people leave us that we wouldn't expect to leave in a normal scenario, because they weren't able to continue to adapt or wait any longer. And obviously, a lot of the service providers in this sector are at the whim of what the customers will and will not allow them to do. So we have to just make sure that we're constantly adapting for that. But it's been really important to us as well that we're very outward around mental health in terms of supporting and offering advice. And actually, we recently just did a whole thing on autism awareness within the sector as well. And actually, people with autism especially really struggle with change, and it's something that we've spoken about, and actually that has been a particular challenge for us as well. And Chris Barnes is one of our senior managers who's spoken really eloquently around that recently, and I know Facilitate are doing an article on him soon covering that too. So actually for me it's about, let's talk about it, let's accept that this is a thing, let's not try and hide from it, let's not hide away from it either. And actually the only positive I take at the moment is there is light at the end of the tunnel now. We know in June that the restrictions will be lifted, most likely. They're talking today in the press about what travel might look like in the future, and actually all of that is starting to change. And actually we're starting to see things pick up. Roles being re-recruited, people starting to come back in again, because FM has an incredibly important role to play in getting people back into the workplace. Probably the most important role out of any sector in terms of helping organizations. And again, I bring that FM back to the strategic importance of what we do and the workplace productivity around what we do. That's just critical for us. And all of those people that have been housed up for the last 14 months now, just get ready to come back even bigger and bolder and brighter and more enthusiastic than they were before, and learn all those things that you've taken from your training in this last 14 months and just apply it. And if your organization doesn't appreciate you, then go and find somebody that does, because that is it's a really important thing. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for obviously helping with the webinar. There's a lot of great tips there, a lot of great advice for people looking to come into the industry, and we really appreciate your time. Just before we go on to our closing thoughts, I'd just like to highlight a couple of events that we've got coming up. So in preparation for World FM Day, we'll be hosting another webinar, and we'll be interviewing Mark White, who built a very successful career with Churchill Contract Services. He recently, well, not so recently anymore, but he moved over to Australia and is now rebuilding his career over there. We've got Bill Richards, who's in Singapore, Ploen van Dersen, who's in the Netherlands, and Laura Tomazzi, who is the sales director for CBRE. We've also got a really great event coming up, which is basically highlighting the value of apprenticeships. And we've got interviews with Gavin Payne, who's the Director of Engineering and Baggage at Heathrow Airport, and also Kelly Stone. Both of those, Kelly is the Head of Airside and Engineering. Both of those started on apprenticeships and both continue to develop their career within FM. So again, a really exciting event. So again, thanks for everyone's time, and I'll pass over to Conrad to finish off.
Thank you, Michelle. So closing thoughts are just the IWFM Rising FM group, as Michelle said at the start, we're here to support and provide guidance to anyone who's starting their journey, no matter what age or what step they're coming into it at. We've got an array of people within our panel with different backgrounds and at different stages in their career. So reach out to us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or personally, and we're all to help. You've got Bernard Crouch, who's the chair of our SIG group, myself, Amy Williamson, Scott Wildersford, Michelle Elliott, and Ian Hathaway, who's joined as well. So reach out to any of us and we're here to help. Thank you all for listening, and I hope we get to see you at our next events. Thank you.